As you might have heard, a Russian fighter jet is reported to have forced down a US Air Force RPA over the Black Sea on Tuesday, 14th of March. According to the reports, a US-American RPA, specifically MQ-9 Reaper, and 2 Russian Su-27 fighter jets were involved in this incident. According to a press release by US European Command, at approximately 7 a.m., one of the Russian Su-27 aircraft struck the propeller of the MQ-9, causing US forces to have to bring the MQ-9 down in international waters. Several times before the collision, the Su-27s dumped fuel and flew in front of the MQ-9 in a reckless, environmentally unsound and unprofessional manner. There are many questions that might be associated with this crash, but it is early days, so we don't know much. Instead of speculating, I'll sum up the facts and some additional background that helps contextualize this event. How did the Russians down the aircraft? According to the release, the first attempts to interfere with the Reaper was to have the Su-27s fly in front of the Reaper and then repeatedly dumping fuel on it. Aircraft are equipped with quick fuel vents that allow for this, although they are really only used usually in emergencies or special circumstances, and it's not common practice to dump fuel on another aircraft. A second Su-27 then appeared to have made contact with the Reaper, destroying its propeller and thus its means of propulsion and thus forcing it down. This means that the Reaper was not shot down, but was the victim of an unsafe flight maneuver, which resulted, yes, in the same outcome, it crashed, but it does carry different legal baggage with it, and at this point there can also be a discussion on whether this is a deliberate act or the result, the unintended result perhaps, of very unprofessional piloting on the side of the Russian pilot. But that does take us too far into the realm of speculation and the legal intricacies that are involved here, so let's stay with the facts as we know them for now. It is also likely that the Su-27, as having made contact with the propeller, was slightly damaged in the process. However, beyond the obvious risk that such contact poses in the general sense, the risk of FOD damage to the engines of the Sukhoi is there, small pieces of the crash being ingested into those jet engines and then wreaking havoc there. And yes, the Sukhoi-27 does have an FOD screen, so a foreign object damage screen that prevents these small objects from entering the engine air tank, but that is linked to the gear being deployed and thus generally only used in takeoff and landing. I have also seen some analogies to the World War II missions flown by Allied pilots against German V-1 missiles, and the question of why the Sukhoi-27 didn't just tip over the RPA with its wing. Well, the V-1 had a basic autopilot system, allowing it to fly a preset course, but the Reaper is a manned system with a remote piloting link, thus allowing the operator to potentially recover the aircraft if tipped over. With the V-1, there was no such chance. Now let's turn to the question of what a MQ-9 Reaper was doing over the Black Sea. Well, as you know, Russia escalated the war against Ukraine last year, and this caused NATO to set up surveillance in the area to have information on what is going on. RPAs like MQ-9 Reaper can be used for this. Usually stationed in Romania, they are then piloted remotely from stations like the Naval Air Station Sigonella in Italy. And as long as it operates in international airspace, it's perfectly allowed to do this and standard practice for many nations around the world, including Russia. However, this does require to follow the required safety and standardized procedures of air traffic, for example, by having its transponder on. In this case, there is no reason yet to assume that it did not have that transponder on, as typically NATO equipment does always have it on, although Russia does claim in this instance that it did not have it on. Even if we were to entertain this statement by Russia, that still doesn't mean that you can just crash it out of the sky. However, these missions are in fact not that new in the sense that they are only coming out of the current escalation that Russia forced in the Russian-Ukrainian war. Since a couple of years, the US and NATO have increased the number of flights on their eastern flank due to Russia's increasingly threatening behavior, which only last year escalated the conflict. This also included more reconnaissance flights by unmanned aircraft like MQ-9 Reaper. Right now it is unsure whether the US will be able to recover the wreckage. As Turkey has closed the Bosphorus Strait, there is currently no access to the Black Sea. Of course, Turkey is a NATO member, so perhaps there is some sort of cooperation going on there. And of course, it also does not mean that the wreckage cannot be recovered through alternative means, for example, by relying on other local NATO allies like Romania. While there is always the risk of this wreckage landing in the hands of the wrong people, it is overall unlikely that the Reaper has anything on board that is really big news to an actor like, say, Russia. By now, it's a mature system with more than a decade of service, so this is definitely not the same as that mad scramble we saw to get the F-35 back. But still, the US may very well have an interest in recovering this wreckage as soon as possible. There are also a few elements here to the story that fix it into the broader context. First off, there is at least some tacit recognition that Ukraine may receive some intelligent information from the US during the present Russo-Ukrainian conflict. This likely causes some anger in Moscow, although they can't really do anything directly about it. A single Reaper, although capable, isn't really the most high-value asset that gathers this sort of information, but it is a relatively cheap, slow, unprotected and unmanned system. Crash one out of the sky, as serious as that is basically sub-threshold. Again, this is speculation, but within the picture that is painting itself now, there is a massive difference between crashing into a Reaper and shooting at a Reaper, or doing that to some other manned ISR system. Second, Russian pilots have repeatedly been observed flying unsafe flight maneuvers against NATO aircraft. This is not new, widely reported, and evidenced by video proof. And that also begs the question of how much was this premeditated, was this ordered to happen, or was this just a case of aerial bullying going wrong? Third, the US has a general policy, and we are talking in generalities here, but there is a general policy of not retaliating against attacks on its drones. Again, because it is likely that sub-threshold issue, no one really gets hurt, all you lose is a drone, and it doesn't really happen that often. And that's what we know for now. Make sure to check your inboxes for a new round of early access videos and sign-up bonus if you're a Patreon or channel members. And as always, have a great day and see you in the sky.